and Nick.
Welcome to That Superhero Thing podcast, where we discuss the latest superhero and comic book movies and TV shows. I'm your host, Nick, and joining me, as always, is my co-host, Anthony.
Hello.
Hello, you alright?
Yeah, not too bad, mate. You?
Good, yeah, I'm good. I was going to start with, it's been a busy week, but I start with that, it's been a busy week for every week. So I don't know what else to say, but it has been, there's been loads of news this week, and there's been quite a bit to watch as well. We're only going to do Falcon The Winter Soldier, but there's been a few releases this weekend, but we'll touch on them as we go. So yeah, I'm going to do the usual. We'll break down the week's news. We'll do DC and Marvel. I will put in the description. I feel like I've got it in early this time. I will put in the description of the podcast what time we're going to start talking about Falcon The Winter Soldier. And in case you get that, you fast forward to it, there will obviously be spoilers for the week's episode, for episode 2, the Star-Spangled Man, I think it's called, isn't it? So obviously there's going to be spoilers there. Let's get straight into the news then. So we'll do DC news. We'll do DC news first this week. First bit of news. I know it feels like for the last 6 weeks, every bit of news for DC has been the Snyder Cut's coming. The Snyder Cut's coming. It's coming out. And I thought, now that it's been out, we won't talk about it as much anymore. But there's been loads of Snyderverse news as well. There's been a new version of the Snyder Cut. There's the Justice is Grey edition, which came out
the one in black
HBO
and
Max.
white.
It came out in black and white. Yeah, it's not out in the UK. It's not on Sky or Now TV or anything like that. I'm a little bit gutted. It looks. Do you know what? I've seen a few clips and it sounds stupid because it's just the same film in black and white. But it does look really good in black and white. So
I mean, just get an old TV in it.
Just get an old TV. Yeah, it's the same shape. It's the aspect ratio as well.
Yeah,
I just need to go and get me nan's old CRT or whatever it's called out the garage and watch it on that. So, problem solved. There's also been it was obviously really well received. The movie, it's done really well, and there's been quite a lot of, I think you mentioned it before, there's like a bit of a thing on Twitter at the moment, and Facebook. The
hashtag's now trending, restore the Snyderverse, isn't it?
I've tweeted it multiple times. I think they need to restore it. Let's carry on from here. But apparently it's not going to happen. That's probably the a bit of bad news coming. So the CEO of Warner Media, a lady called Ann Sarnoff, she was interviewed by Variety this week, and she was asked about the Snyder Cut, and she said that the Snyder Cut marks the completion of Zack's trilogy, but they already have plans for the DCEU moving forward. Exciting plans, as they said. So basically, in a nutshell, summing up, it's not coming. They've got their own plans for something else. She was also asked if there would be a release of the air cut from the of the original Suicide Squad from David Ayer, who directed it, because that again was ripped to pieces by Warner Brothers, and it wasn't his, should we say, vision that ended up coming out. But she just flat out shut that down. She said they've got absolutely no plans for a different cut of Suicide Squad, which again, you know, we went to see Suicide Squad, didn't we? The pictures when it first came out, and as entertaining as it was a bad film. We'll touch on Suicide Squad a little bit later on in the news because there's obviously another one. But yeah, the first one, it wasn't great. So it would be good. It would be interesting. I've heard a few things about his original cut, and it does sound like the Snyder Cut sounded a lot better than Joss Whedon's. His original cut sounds a lot better as well. We've had a bit of news around the Flash movie. I think we touched on it last week that Billy Crudup was going to be playing Henry Allen, Flash's dad, but he's been replaced. I don't know this guy who's been replaced with. Who is it?
So it's Ron Livingston. So he's been in The Conjuring. He was in Band of Brothers and stuff like that. He was in The Fifth Wave, which came out a few years ago as well.
I'm not seeing him.
So he's pretty decent. So let's kind of just see where we go from there.
I've seen a lot of people, happy that he's on Twitter. People seem quite happy that he's replaced him. I think people would have liked to have Billy Crudup for continuity, but people don't seem too upset the fact that this guy's stepping in. So he's he must be pretty decent.
Yeah.
There's another bit of potentially bad news about the Flash movie though that's come up. Michael Keaton was interviewed this week by Deadline, and I think everyone has been under the impression that Michael Keaton is fully signed on to play
he hasn't
Bruce
though,
Wayne.
has he?
He hasn't. No, he said
No,
he's been
he
sent.
said the script is still sat there and he hasn't read it yet, hasn't he, or something?
Exactly. It's sat on his iPad. He said.
Yeah.
But he, as of right now, he's not committed to coming back. Apparently, quite a lot of the reasoning is obviously because he's not read it, and he said he's quite busy at the moment doing other things. But also, he said COVID
restrictions
is a concern.
Yeah.
Yeah. He said he's keeping an eye on what's going on in the UK with COVID restrictions. I didn't know it was filming in the UK. Maybe it isn't. Maybe he's just sort of, keeping an eye on it because we seem to be getting political here, but obviously we seem to be doing quite well with like vaccinations and stuff like that. So maybe he's just thinking like that he'll see how the vaccination starts to work before he commits to it. But that is potentially bad news. I think that's probably one of the most interesting aspects of the Flash movie. I mean, the Flash was great in the Justice League, but and I'm sure he could carry his own movie, but it's a bit of a bummer if he's not going to be part of it.
Yeah.
But there was quite a bit of casting news other than what's his name, Ron Livingston.
Yeah.
Yeah. So other than our mate Ron, we've never heard of. There's been a few other cast announcements. So there was a cast announcement for Black Adam, which is obviously The Rock's like anti-hero Shazam type thing. Pierce Brosnan has been cast as Dr. Fate in the Black Adam movie. I've seen Dr. Fate previously. I think he was in Smallville. He's like a sorcerer. So again, DC fans will probably hate me for this, but my impression is he's like the DC's version of Doctor Strange. So he's going to be down that route. Good actor though, isn't he, Pierce Brosnan? So that should be.
Do you know what? I've got a newfound love for Pierce Brosnan ever since he did the Eurovision thing with Will Ferrell.
I didn't know he was in that.
Yeah, he's Will Ferrell's dad, and it's hilarious.
Oh, okay.
And his accent makes me laugh so much.
I'll have to watch it. I'll have to watch it. But he's good. Yeah, he's good. It's a good bit of casting. That's a big name, isn't it?
Well, on the subject of casting, we've also got Helen Mirren has just been announced as the villain Hespera in Shazam 2. Yeah. So that'll be quite interesting. Yeah, it is.
Big names.
And it's nice that there's a few more British names coming into it as well. To be fair.
Yeah.
UK represent. All that.
if you like, just you and your own there, Anthony. And then last bit of quite big news, to be fair. Last bit of DC news that I've got down here is that we got a few posters and we got a trailer for the Suicide Squad, which is, I thought it was going to be a reboot, but clearly it isn't. So it's like the follow up kind of thing to the original Suicide Squad.
Is it?
But, yeah.
It's
a sequel. It's a sequel. What do you mean you didn't get onto it?
I thought they just really liked Margot Robbie, so they just wanted her back again.
Yeah, well, I'd heard it was like a reboot. I thought they were like starting afresh, but it's got. I mean, Joel Kinnaman's in it still. Joel Kinnaman's in it. He was Rick Flag in the first one. Jai Courtney's in it. He was Captain Boomerang in the first one. So, and obviously Margot Robbie's back as well. That's how memorable the film was and how good it was. That cinema experience that we had there was brilliant.
Did you know that Sylvester Stallone's the voice of the Sharkman?
Amazing. Yeah.
Did you know that?
I did. Yeah. I didn't want to go through. I didn't want to do like a whole trailer breakdown because obviously we want to get onto Falcon The Winter Soldier, but it was a red band trailer straight away. So it was very it was full on violence, swearing, and everything like that, which is good because that's what the film is. There's no point in doing a PG trailer for it because anyone who's anyone's under 12 shouldn't be watching it. Not that they won't like, but I suppose it's not marketed at them. The soundtrack is absolutely brilliant. It's James Gunn, so just the one song off it, Steely Dan, Dirty Work, very 70s music, typical James Gunn. The whole look and feel and sound of it was just like, it just had James Gunn all over it, and obviously it is a James Gunn film, but I like James Gunn stuff. It's got, I suppose to a degree, it's going to be an R-rated. It's basically an R-rated Justice League, isn't it? Justice League. Sorry, no, Guardians of the Galaxy. He's taken like really sort of bizarre characters who most people have never heard of, and he's going to obviously put them out in front of everybody. But it looks really good. I started writing on my notes like who was sort of the standout character in the trailer, but it just became a massive list because most of the characters on the trailer looked boss. So obviously,
go on. I'm really looking forward to John Cena.
He's the first one on my list. So he's playing Peacemaker. He
Yeah.
was great. I mean, he is good, John Cena, but he was brilliant in this. He's getting, because of, I mean, obviously the film's not even out yet, but obviously like Warner Brothers and James Gunn as well, I assume, are so happy with how he's done. He's already getting his own spin-off. So I think it's a series, a Peacemaker series on HBO Max is coming. But cool. From the trailer, he was bossing that. Obviously we got Joel Kinnaman as Rick Flag, Margot Robbie as Harley, Jai Courtney was back as Captain Boomerang. You've already mentioned Sly Stallone as King Shark. So good. Not what I thought they'd do with King Shark, because I've seen him in. He was in. I've seen like clips of him from The Flash, the CW show with Grant Gustin. Yeah. And he's like big. He's like made to be like big, scary, serious, villain. But they've just gone down a completely different route. He's like Groot, isn't he? He's just going to be the new Groot. But he was brilliant. And then the other two that I thought were good was Idris Elba as Bloodsport. He seems to be like, I don't know. He's kind of like the viewer of the film, like what is going on here, sort of thing. And then obviously we've got Michael Rooker back as Savant as well, who was obviously Yondu in Guardians of the Galaxy. Massive cast. That's the thing that probably not concerns me about it. It's like if you look at like some of the big names, you've got Taika Waititi's in it, Pete Davidson, Alice Braga, Nathan Fillion, Dave Dastmalchian, who was in Ant-Man. He's one of
Nathan Fillion's in it as well.
Nathan Fillion's in it.
I love Nathan Fillion.
Sean Gunn's in it as that like weasel thing licking the cage. Michaela Hoover, Peter Capaldi, Storm Reed, Flula Borg, and there's still loads of other actors in there playing other supervillains. I just look at it and think there's going to be lots of cannon fodder here. There's going to be loads of them just killed, like probably very, very early on in the film. There's no way these are all going to survive the whole movie. No. But it looks good. And then the very end, when you see this villain, this like, the guy calls it a kaiju. It's like a freaking kaiju or something like that. And it's like this giant starfish. Did you see it in the trailer? He's like a supervillain from the 60s comics. I think he was the first thing to fight the Justice League of America in the 60s.
Okay.
And he's called Starro, and he's basically just an alien. But it's like classic proper randomness, which is obviously what James Gunn's all about. But I was quite excited for it anyway because I knew it was James Gunn. But the trailer, it's done a really good job, and it's not too long. I think it's August. It's out as well, isn't it? So and that'll be doing. That'll be go. I think the plan is with all the Warner Brothers things for this year anyway. Get a cinema release, and then at the same time they're doing a HBO Max release. Yeah. So you'll be able, even if cinemas aren't open fully in August, or we have any issues with COVID and stuff like that, we'll all still be able to watch it, which is great.
I believe that the New Mutants is skipping Disney Plus and going straight to HBO Max as well.
Yeah, but it is in States. But I'm not 100% sure if that's going to be the case in the UK because I think in the US, my understanding, I got into an argument with somebody on Twitter on this. Not an argument, he just wasn't happy that I asked the question. In this, I think Fox, even before the Disney deal, signed a contract with HBO Max, and Disney have got to honour that contract. But with there not being a HBO Max in the UK, I would imagine it would probably come to the UK because in the States, Dark Phoenix and X-Men First Class are both on HBO Max, not Disney Plus. But in the UK, they're on Disney Plus. So I would assume we'd probably end up getting it. If not, it'll go on to Sky. Are you bothered? Do you want to watch New Mutants?
I'll watch it.
Oh, yeah, maybe.
Tell us how you're real feeling.
I'm not sold. I'm not sold. It's not good, is it? It's not good. I'm not seen it, but I've not heard good things. So that's kind of Marvel-y. Let's get into Marvel news then. So you've got Marvel news that I'm normally on the ball with the news, but you've got stuff I didn't know. So go on. What were the bits of Marvel news that you said you had?
Right. Okay. So my most exciting one that I'm really happy about. And it is just a complete rumour, so nothing is confirmed whatsoever. Yeah. Jeff Goldblum has been seen in Australia with Chris Hemsworth. And now they're questioning whether he's going to be returning for Thor Love and Thunder.
I hope so.
He was pictured with him in a box at a local sports game of some kind. I'm not a sports person. I don't know what it was.
Sports game of some kind. I bet it was like something really
something involving a ball. I don't know. cricket maybe. I don't know. No.
Okay.
But yeah. So he's been pictured, and obviously with him being in Australia, during pandemic times, people are questioning, is he there for work? Which means that there's rumours now spiralling that he is going to be in Thor. So nothing confirmed, but that has happened.
Yeah.
We've had it confirmed now that Ant-Man, Quantumania and Captain Marvel 2 will be starting to film in May.
Amazing.
So that's all going to kick off. And then I've also got that that there's more rumours surrounding Doctor Strange 2, due to some costume releases that I think you've got. But one of the main things is that it looks like there's a costume for Clea that's now been shown. But with there being no other actress confirmed for the role, there's talks that they're going to tweak the origin story of Clea, and Rachel McAdams, who's obviously in the first Doctor Strange, she will become Clea. So again, that is just a rumour. Nothing's confirmed, but
yeah. Well, there's gonna. I don't know. She didn't really have. I mean, she was in Doctor Strange 1 quite a lot, but it's like, where are you gonna, how are you gonna bring her back? So I suppose giving us sort of superpowers to a degree would be, it's a way of keeping her in the, in the series, isn't it? But then at the same time, I'm a bit like, is it not a bit similar to what they're doing with Natalie Portman, and just like, to make her not more interesting, but to sort of give us something, a continued storyline, just throw superpowers at them. But yeah, I mean, it'd be good to have her back. That story that you're talking about. So there was a huge concept art leak. I think it was Thursday or Friday. So the reason that it came about is because when companies like Funko and Hot Toys are going to be making, they obviously need to make the toys prior to release, months before trailers. So all this concept art gets sent from by Marvel to these places, and somebody's basically intercepted it. So there was the Doctor Strange one. So there was a picture of Clea. You couldn't see the face clearly. Okay. You couldn't see the face clear.
That was as bad as my domino joke.
That was brilliant. No, it wasn't. It was good. You couldn't see her face clearly, but we'll have a go and say that might be, it could be Rachel McAdams. There was a picture of Doctor Strange in a comic accurate outfit, which had been rumored. Like, I think we talked about it last week. He didn't have like the big white thing on his chest, but it did look a little bit more comic accurate. There was Wong. Mordo was in one of them, so I assume he's
Mordo with a
back
cloak now, wasn't it?
With a cloak, he looks good in that. And then there's a picture of Wanda and Wong fighting alongside each other rather than against each other. So I mean, we all knew she was in it anyway. There was bits of some concept art for Miss Marvel. Showed you her costume. She looks very similar to how she looks in the Avengers game. And there was some concept art for Hawkeye as well. So there was a picture of Hawkeye. There was Kate Bishop as well. There was somebody else in there.
Echo.
There was a picture of Echo as well. There was somebody else in there who I'm not going to say because it's a massive spoiler for something. If you want to know who it is, you can find it. It's on comicbookmovie.com. It's on loads of places on Twitter. Just Google the concept art. I won't spoil it on here because it's for something that's not coming out for months. But if you want to go and get things spoiled, go and do it. I just happened to see it. I didn't go looking for it. It was just there.
I really worried that was going to be Echo. Me saying that.
It's not Echo. No, because that's been announced that she's getting her own spin-off on Disney Plus. I mean, I don't know who Echo is. Do you know who Echo is?
No.
No, there you go then. We'll shut up. we won't go into too much. If we don't know who it is, a lot of our listeners don't know who it is. If you know, let us know on Twitter or Facebook. Probably the biggest. So we'll fly through this because we're taking ages to do the news again. Probably the biggest news from Marvel this week was news about Black Widow. So the Black Widow movie has been delayed again. It was supposed to be coming out. I think we talked about this for the last couple of weeks that it was probably going to happen, even though they said it was definitely coming out on the 7th of May. It's not coming out on the 7th of May. It's now going to be coming out on the 9th of July. And it's going to have a simultaneous release on Disney Plus Premier Access and out in the cinemas on the same day. Premier Access, for anyone who doesn't know, on Disney Plus, obviously you've got to pay for your Disney Plus membership, and then you rent the movie separately as well. I think it's $30 in the US and £20 in the UK.
£20,
I've got no problem paying that. I'd rather, I mean, obviously you're supposed to see how COVID's going and stuff like that, but to be able to watch it at home and not have to risk anything, I'm well up for it.
I mean, again, it annoys me because my local cinema is a £5. So to be paying £20 when I can pay a £5, that's the only thing for me.
Well, go to the cinema then. You'll be open.
Well, yeah.
Well,
that's probably what I'll do.
Can't you? Go on, then you go then.
Oh,
You
go
go.
on. Go on,
You go on your own. I don't get why we're delaying it if it's coming out on Disney Plus. Because the cinemas are going to be opening. I mean, they're already open in most places in the US.
Do you reckon it's something to do with the time lapse in between the
No, I
following
think it's just.
stuff?
No, I think it's just to get. I think it's just to try and build up as much box office as possible. I think even though that people will go to this, people can go to the cinema on the 17th of May in the UK and probably on the 7th of May in the US, people still will be quite weary about it. Whereas in the UK, for instance, we'll be hopefully fully out of any lockdown by the end of June. So people should be relatively happy to go to the cinema in the middle, first week in July.
Yeah.
But I think they should. It's dragging on now. They should just drop it on Disney Plus. It's actually going to mean that it's releasing at the same. It comes out on the same day as episode 5 of Loki, so it's going to be there's obviously going to be crossover. But again, it's a prequel to a degree, isn't it? It's set prior to Civil War or after between Civil War and Infinity War. So I suppose it doesn't really matter when it arrives. The thing that it has affected though is because that's moved back to July. Shang-Chi and the Ten Rings has moved back to the 3rd of September. So that's obviously going to mess up potentially mess up continuity a little bit. Nothing else has moved though. So the Eternals is still slated for November. And Spider-Man's still slated for December. So talking of Spider-Man, we're getting good at these segues. So Spider-Man No Way Home is currently shooting in Atlanta. I think it's wrapped up. I think Tom Holland put something on Twitter. So it's Saturday now. Tom Holland put something on Twitter or Instagram to say that filming had finished.
Yeah.
So I'd still take these as rumours to a degree, but there's not been any sign the entire time of this of Tobey Maguire or Andrew Garfield on set, but obviously Marvel are very secretive. However, a guy called William Spencer, who is Andrew Garfield's stuntman, has been seen on set alongside a guy called Greg Townley, who's Tom Holland's stuntman, and he's posted a picture on Instagram. Now, he didn't say what he was filming or anything like that, but it was in Atlanta, and he removed it in minutes. So obviously Marvel have seen it and said, take that down. If it wasn't Spider-Man, why would they tell him to take it down?
Exactly.
And then something else that's popped up yesterday, so Thursday, is that, and I'm not sure whether this is real or not, but with it having wrapped up, all the crew have been given like gifts and like merchandise and stuff like that, like t-shirts and caps and stuff. Say I was on Spider-Man No Way Home, and on the t-shirt that is floating around on Twitter, it says Spider-Man No Way Home, and from the bit that you can see Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man suit in it. From the first movie, not the second one, which was brilliant from from Amazing Spider-Man 2, but from the weird looking one from Amazing Spider-Man 1. Now I'd take that with a pinch of salt at the moment because I'm not convinced it's real, but it is. It's there. It's floating around. So that's two things pointing to it. So I think if it's wrapped filming and it's out in December, I mean it's 9 months away. We need to be getting at least a teaser trailer soon, and I assume that'll sort of confirm everything really. A couple of other bits of Marvel news. There was an interview this week with Collider, and I found it's not really massive news, but I found it quite interesting. And they interviewed the director of Falcon The Winter Soldier, a guy called Derek Kolstad, and he was basically asked about how the production goes and all that sort of stuff. And he's basically implied or sort of confirmed to a degree that it's not just Kevin Feige or Kevin Feige rhymes with beige. We got that. We got a hashtag on Twitter.
I wanted to cry.
Feige rhymes with beige. Amazing, brilliant. So it's not just him. Apparently, according to the director who oversees the MCU, basically whenever he submitted a script, he'd get back 15 pages of notes from a group of 12 to 15 people at Marvel, known collectively as the Parliament, and that is the group's name, and they are basically the people who are running and deciding on everything on the MCU.
They sound like the next villains.
They do, don't they?
The Parliament.
It does like the League of Evil or something like that. But there's no names been given or anything like that. But apparently they meet at the start of every day and the end of every day and basically hash out what's going on in the MCU. So I thought that was quite interesting. It's not just Kevin Feige running the show. Obviously he's not going to run the whole thing on his own, but there's obviously this group of people who would be in it. I don't know. I would probably, I don't know, maybe someone like Jon Favreau. He's obviously been in it from very early, or from the start, basically, and I know he's been executive producer on a few things as well. So I don't know who'd be in it, but it's quite interesting. And then last bit of news, leading into Falcon the Winter Soldier. The premiere of Falcon and the Winter Soldier last week was officially Disney Plus's biggest ever season premiere of any show. So it's done better than anything for the first episode. So it's beat Mandalorian, it's beat WandaVision. Whether it beats Mighty Ducks this week, I don't know. I'm sure it will. But Mighty Ducks came out this week. It's a comic book movie podcast. We can't talk about Mighty Ducks, but it was really good. But Deadline has reported that the Snyder Cut beat it last week. So over the weekend, Snyder Cut had 1.8 million views, and Falcon and the Winter Soldier only had 1.7 million views. So DC's won that battle. I said leading into Falcon and the Winter Soldier, that wasn't a good segue because I've got one more little bit of news to talk about.
God.
It was just basically that I said it was a busy week at the start of the podcast. It's because on Friday, as well as episode 2 of Falcon and the Winter Soldier and Mighty Ducks, we also got Invincible released on Amazon Prime. So it's based on a comic book. I think it's Robert Kirkman who did The Walking Dead. I think the first 3 episodes dropped on Friday. I've watched the first 1 so far. It's very, very good. It's an animated show, but it's not for kids. It's an 18. It's got a really good cast so far. It's similar to it's kind of like Justice League, DC, Superman. So it's basically got this guy called Omni-Man, who's basically the Superman of this universe. There's a group, I can't remember the name of them, the Guardians or something. It's basically the Justice League. You've got like a Wonder Woman in there. There's a Batman in there. And it's about this guy's kid, this Omni-Man's kid, and Omni-Man is voiced by J.K. Simmons. So great cast straight away. His kid is Stephen Yeun from The Walking Dead. And it's basically him becoming, getting his powers and becoming a superhero, and having to basically live under the fact that his dad is like, it's kind of like, it's basically Sky High. Sky High. Okay. It's Sky High, basically. But it's good. Mark Hamill's in it as well. So there's loads more. There's loads more. But it's good. It's really good. As I said, first episode was really good. It's gonna. I don't know how many episodes there are, but the first 3 dropped on Friday. It's going to drop week by week after that. I'll obviously be watching it. I have asked on Twitter if anybody would be interested in us, touching on it each week, reviewing it and stuff like that. If you are, let us know on Twitter or Facebook. If we don't hear anything, we won't bother. I'll just enjoy it myself. But yeah, it's good, so it's worth a watch. Right. So, any other news that you've got, Anthony?
No, that's it.
Fantastic. Right. So let's get into Falcon and the Winter Soldier then. Again, obviously, spoilers. We're going to go do what we normally do. We're going to break down the episode, review it as we go, wrap it up at the end, and then we'll do ridiculous series at the end of the episode. So episode 2 of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, called The Star-Spangled Man, didn't get a title until after it had released, because I hadn't heard anything about the title on Thursday, and when it released on Friday morning here, so it's 7 o'clock, I went on Disney Plus to see what it was called, and it still just had episode 2. And I don't think it was until 10 or 11 o'clock, so it had been out for hours, that it changed to the Star-Spangled Man. Fairly clear, though, why it's called the Star-Spangled Man. So it opens with John Walker, who is the new Cap, who people do not like on Twitter. But I think they tried at the start to try and make you like him a little bit, or understand him a little bit more. So it opens with him, and he's in a locker room. It turns out it's his old high school locker room. And the whole scene is basically him seeing that he's quite nervous about becoming the new Captain America. It's trying to humanize him, isn't it, to a degree? Yeah. So he's explaining to I think it's his wife or his partner comes in, and he's saying that there's obviously a lot resting on him as the new Cap. His mate comes in, Lamar Hoskins, who we see further down the line in the episode as well. And he's basically trying to put across the fact that, as I said, there's a lot resting on him as the new Captain America, but also he just wants to get stuck in. He wants to go and, fight terrorists or supervillains or whatever it is, but he's having to go through all these meetings and events and all that sort of stuff. And his mate...
He's just more government-y, isn't he?
He is. He's a lot more controlled than... straight away you can tell it's like this... obviously Steve was created by the government, for a purpose and stuff like that, but after he came back, or probably even before he got, frozen, he wasn't really doing as he was told, was he? He was sort of his own. He was sort of his own man. And this guy is like, that's probably what the government didn't want. which is probably why they didn't give it to Sam. For maybe further reasons that get explored there further down the line, I suppose. They want somebody who they can control. So we start off, we get the Marvel logo and all that sort of stuff, and the theme is, it's the Star-Spangled Man from Captain America: The First Avenger, except it's a modernized version. Did you get onto that? But it's the song from First Avenger. No, you know in the First Avenger when Cap's doing his like all the USO shows and all that sort of stuff,
all
and
the promotion stuff.
Yeah, that's the song. That's the song that plays over that. Except this is like it's a modernized version, as I said.
Oh no, I didn't realize.
So it's like he's gone to this massive event. There's people. He's signing autographs for people in his full costume. There's toys. There's like action figures of him already, of this new Captain America that he's signing. There's posters of him, and he's doing a TV interview for Good Morning America, and it is the most cringeworthy thing.
Oh my god,
it was awful. At the start, when he's like, "Good Morning America," it's like, oh, shut up. Stop talking, just pack it in. But again, it's clearly what they're trying to put him across as, isn't it? They're trying to put him across as this cringeworthy, doing as he's told by the government. But we see like his, like, I think they say he's like got like a glowing resume, and like all the things he's done, like, he's worked in anti-terrorism. He's got like 3 medals. He's the only person in the US military history to get 3 of these medals. Some university wanted to test his body because he's so fit, even though he's not got any like super soldier serum or anything like that. So it's portraying him as, look, he is like the best a human can be, basically. But he does make a very clear point though, doesn't he? He said he doesn't have super strength, and it's like, I think that gets touched on quite a bit throughout the episode to sort of confirm he's not got any superpowers. This is just a dude. He's a very, very, he's like the peak of human fitness, but he's not got superpowers. He's still just a guy, isn't he?
Yeah.
And then while they're interviewing him, we skip to Bucky, who's just sitting on the floor, rocking back and forth, watching the telly, or the TV, sorry. And while he's watching it, they're talking about the lady interviewing him asks him about Steve, and he says, which is obviously what set Bucky off. He says, even though I never met him, he feels like a brother to me. And obviously, he wasn't Bucky's brother, Steve, but he was as close as you can get. And he's clearly upset. He doesn't like this fella straight away, does he? You can tell from that point. And then we skip to Sam and Torres, who we don't really see much of in the episode, do we? I thought after the first episode, he was going to be like, a main character.
A bit more of a focus, yeah.
Because when he showed up at the start of this, I was like, oh, right, okay, that's it. He's here with Sam straight away. But I think we see him like another one more time, and he's gone.
But then it was heavily action, wasn't it, in this one? Maybe it'll be more the next episode.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. But so he's I think Sam sees a poster of him and he says he's a good, he looks like a good guy, and that's when Bucky shows up, and he has a bit of a go at Sam. He's saying like he shouldn't have given up the shield. It's not what he would have wanted. But Sam's obviously just, he's having none of it. He's saying it's his decision. He did what he thought was right, basically. And then that's when Bucky gets roped into this whole fight against the Flag Smashers. So Sam lets him know about the Flag Smashers, what they're doing. He doesn't. I think there's a mention of the fact that Bucky doesn't trust Red Wing, because he's obviously trying. Sam loves Red Wing, doesn't he? He's trying to push the fact that Red Wing's like the best thing ever made. And that's when they have that big 3 conversation that we saw in the trailers, like aliens, androids, or wizards. And they have this whole conversation about Doctor Strange not being a wizard and with a hat,
being
and
a
sorcerer.
Like yeah.
It's quite, because it's like, the episode was really it set it right. It's really funny, but again full of action and very serious at the same time.
Yeah.
But it had just that right balance. And basically Bucky ends up saying, "Oh, I'm coming with you. I'm going to help you deal with this." But I don't think Sam seems particularly happy. And then we see them on the jet or the plane. The what's it called? It's not a helicarrier. You know what I mean? It's like a military. Yeah. It's like a military jet. And they're just staring each other out, and it's like they just don't like each other, do they? they've got a mutual respect for each other, but they do not like being around each other. They just wind each other up, the pair of them. It's like it's like a bit of a love triangle, isn't it, between them two and Steve? It's like which one of us is his best friend, sort of thing. And they just don't. I thought once Steve was gone, they'd be okay, but they still don't like each other. They will by the end.
Maybe they'll learn to be friends throughout the series.
I'm sure they will. But I hope they don't. I hope it never gets to we're just best friends. I hope it just stays as mutual respect, because the banter they have through the whole episode is brilliant. I was literally sat there killing myself laughing at some points. Yeah. But yeah, it needs to stay like that. So Bucky asks what the plan is, and Sam doesn't tell him. He just flies off out the jet. And then when he asks Torres for a parachute, doesn't he? He's like, you can't have a parachute. You're 200 feet off. We're only 200 feet off the ground. It's not high enough. And again, like very, very sort of reminiscent of Steve at the start of Winter Soldier. He just jumps. He just jumps out of the plane. It's from 200 feet. Except whereas Steve lands like nicely in the water and then just cracks on. Buggy just crashes through a ton of trees. It's similar, but you're not quite Captain America. And then he's got Red Wing floating above him, just to wind him up. Yeah. And it's quite fast paced, the episode, because we go straight to this warehouse where Sam is, and he's found, or Red Wing I think has found the Flag Smashers. And again, they have like a difference of opinion. Sam wants to sort of wait it out, see where they go, probably use Red Wing, I assume, to track where they're going. And Bucky just wants to get straight in. He's like, there's only two of them. I've got a vibranium arm. I can take them. But obviously it turns out there's more. And then again, there's loads more banter. It's like Sam calls him White Panther. He's like, you're being all super stealthy. You think because you've been in Wakanda, you're the White Panther and stuff like that. Like having a little dig. And then the bit that made me laugh the most was when Bucky's there and he's like, I'm already in here. I'm ahead of you. I'm beating you. And then Sam just rocks up next to him and he just turns around. He looks at me. He's like, hello, how are you? Just like proper like banter between them is brilliant. Yeah. They're just like kids. It's just like a proper couple of kids just constantly arguing. And then I think the thing that sort of kicks Bucky off is they see what they think is a hostage, or Red Wing sees what they think is a hostage. In the back of one of the vans, and then obviously they chase down the vans. We see Bucky like running faster than these vans, like again similar to how like you saw Steve and T'Challa running in Infinity War, just like 10 times faster than anybody else. And he basically catches up with the first van where they think this hostage is, and jumps on it and opens the back door. And I had a bit of a problem with this because he jumps on the first truck, and there's another truck right behind it, like 5 foot behind it. And he opens the door and just leaves the door flopping in the wind, sort of thing. And it's like, why would you not think that the second truck? Obviously, we know it wasn't a hostage, but wouldn't the second truck like beep?
Yeah.
Or radio the first truck and say somebody's just broken into the back of your van. Yeah. But it's like a good like minute, and he's just like walking around, and it's like he makes no effort to shut the door or anything like that. It's like, what are you doing? It's not stealthy at all, is it? But and obviously we find out that probably why they didn't bother radioing through or anything like that, because it turns out that this young girl who they think is the hostage. Some sort of trap, really, wasn't it? Yeah, potentially. I didn't even think of it as a trap. I thought she was just waiting out on the back of the van, because obviously she turns out to be like the boss, doesn't she? But yeah potentially it was a trap.
I'm just thinking because in the warehouse they made the noise.
They did, didn't they?
Yeah, so I'm thinking they've quickly gone, put her in the back, make it look like that, so that we'll draw them out, kind of thing.
Yeah. No, which is obviously another reason why they wouldn't sort of radio through to the first van. Yeah. But no, it makes sense now. But it still doesn't make sense why Bucky would just think he can just leave the back door open.
Because Bucky doesn't give a shit.
I suppose, yeah. But I don't know. He knows there's loads of them. But yeah, maybe it is. He just doesn't give a shit.
But he's got his arm, hasn't he? That's what he's thinking.
He's got a vibranium arm, and he has. But anyway, so this girl in the back she is a young girl. I was going to say she isn't a young girl. She is a young girl. But she's basically she's not a hostage. She's a super soldier. She did
do a proper sickening grin, didn't she?
She did.
Like that was creepy as hell.
Just she didn't have to tell you she was a bad guy or that she's evil or anything like that. Just that grin. It was just like, oh shit, we've made the wrong decision. She's not a hostage.
I immediately regret this decision.
100%. And she just kicks him or punches him straight out the back door onto the next one, and then he gets pulled up onto the top.
See, then there was my next question. How was that truck still driving after that?
Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah. continuity errors.
Come on
It's
now.
into the X-Men. It's turned into the X-Men universe. It's not good. No, it's not that bad. Nothing is. So yeah, and then we basically have this massive fight starts. Again at the very start, Sam sends Red Wing in and starts shooting this girl, and she just grabs it and smashes it over her knee. And again, Bucky's just like, I've always wanted to do that. He's literally being restrained by these two super soldiers.
And he still
can
says
barely
it, yeah.
talk, and he's like, oh, I've always wanted to do that. And then yeah, so Sam rolls up. There's obviously a fight between so there's Bucky and Sam, and there's loads of these super soldiers. And Bucky, to a degree, seems to be able to hold his own, but with them being super soldiers, Sam gets beat pretty quickly and has to fly away. And then the new Cap rolls up on a helicopter with his mate Hoskins, and they do this horrible cheesy like little elbow bump
so
when they get on it, and it's just like,
cringe, innit?
oh god, you're not superheroes, stop it. Or they're obviously new to the whole thing. I assume by the end of this that then probably by the end of the series he's not going to be Cap anymore, John Walker, and hopefully Hoskins will go as well. But it's like, would that automatically like get them in the Avengers or anything like that, just but the fact that he's the new Cap? I assume it wouldn't, would it? Because good, because they think they're brilliant.
You say
me.
good like you've just taken my answer. Like,
Well, I'm taking it, mate. I am taking it. That's it. Yeah, that's it. I'll take it. I just needed confirmation. Just somebody else to tell me it'll all be okay, and they're not going to be in the Avengers.
Take one look at him and go, what a tosser, and then send him on his way.
Pillock with the stupid elbow bumps and all that sort of stuff.
Tony Stark would have a field day with him. Let's be honest.
I know.
If he was alive,
no, they're not good. But that's what they're supposed to be. That's what it's supposed to be, isn't it? You're supposed to not like these guys, or not be impressed with them. And you're not impressed because obviously Bucky and Sam get knocked off quite quickly, off the vans, and then the new I'm gonna keep calling him Cap and Hoskins get absolutely hammered. So Hoskins is just like getting throttled by one of them. Cap manages to save him, but he's got a gun. He has to use a gun to obviously fight these guys.
I was fuming over that, by the way.
Isn't Cap? But Cap's used a gun before. Cap used a gun in the first Avenger and Avengers. He used guns.
In the first Captain America though, that was during wartime, so that was a bit different.
Suppose, yeah. And I suppose in Avengers he only used it to break something, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose. Okay, we'll give him a pass on that. This guy doesn't get a pass though.
No.
Twat, I don't like him. So basically Hoskins gets thrown off the van, and then Cap just literally gets his ass handed to him by this girl. Like seconds, he just gets punched off the van and lands on this car behind.
Now
this is. They get away.
I'm sorry, this is my other thing. If he's got no superhuman strength or anything like that,
how did he survive that?
How did he not have like
padding?
Some form? How could he get up and walk away from it? Do you know what I mean? There was no like
padding. Lots of padding. Oh, lots of padding.
No, I'm sorry.
He's got a padded. It's not a very padded suit though, is it? It was just like at the very start. It was just in like a suit bag, a normal suit bag.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a comic book. It's a comic book TV series. There we go. There's superheroes. There's literally like Wanda and Doctor Strange. But we can't. But surely we can. Yeah, we'll have to just buy the fact that this guy can survive. He landed on the glass. That's probably cushioned his fall to a degree, hasn't it? Seriously,
because sure.
that'd break down anyway. We digress. Not like us, obviously. So after that, the Flag Smashers get away, and then we cut to Sam and Bucky, and they basically again they're just arguing. They're just walking along arguing whose fault it was and all that sort of stuff. But again, they confirm that these guys obviously are being super soldiers. There must be a super soldier serum somewhere, so they need to find it. Which is clear. Obviously, they need to make sure that nobody else is getting this and it's not getting sort of spread out anywhere else. And then that's when Cap and Hoskins roll up in this Jeep and try and get them to join their team. Shall we say that they obviously just want to get them on side, but they're not interested at all. That Bucky's not having any of it. He clearly doesn't like the new Cap. He has a bit of a dig, doesn't he? The new Cap, and says the super soldier serum's not got the greatest track record. Meaning people tend to go to go crazy with it. I.e. Bucky. No, I think he says no offense, doesn't he? But again, the plug-in, the proper pushing. I mean, this is all leading up to my theory at the end, which is probably a really big, easy theory, but it's leading up to that. But the hammering the fact that there's super soldier serum out there, and then it makes people go a little bit nuts and stuff. And we find out there to a degree. I had to rewind this because I couldn't really understand what they were saying, but we get a little bit of an idea as to what Cap and Hoskins' like actual mission is. And the way I sort of read it was that since the blip, they're trying. Obviously, there haven't been really borders and stuff like that, which is what the Flag Smashers are trying to do. They're trying to have like one united world, and their Cap and Hoskins' job is so that while the government are sort of going back to pre-blip positions, their job is to make sure no one stops that happening. So, i.e., to stop terrorist organisations like the Flag Smashers, and they basically want Bucky and Sam to help. And then that's when we find out. I think Bucky says to Hoskins, "Who are you?" And he says he's Lamar Hoskins, and they ask for a little bit more. And he says, "I'm Battlestar," and that's his superhero / non-superhero. I've got no superpowers name, Battlestar. And Bucky's just like, no, bye. I'm going. I'm not having any of that. Your name's not Battlestar. It's the stupidest name. So he gets out, and then Cap says he wants Sam. He wants Steve's wingman by his side, and he's like, no, you shouldn't have said that either. So I'm going as well, basically. And then so after that we skip to the Flag Smashers. Stupid name. Can't wait to stop calling them the Flag Smashers. But we skip to the Flag Smashers, and they're obviously they're basically setting up they're being given shelter and food by this family. So there's obviously like a lot of people who are supporting the cause, but it's like Torres said in the first episode, he gets why they're doing it, but it's obviously not it's not it, which again is good. Like we talk about, like I bring it up every week, the Marvel villain problem, like just doing things for the sake of it. But again, they're not just trying to destroy things; they've got like a logical reason, even though it's not the right way to do it. It sort of makes sense in their head. And then the young girl, like we know what her name is now, Carly, and we find out her name's Carly. She gets a text, and it says, "You took what was mine. I'm going to find you and kill you." Very blunt. It's like Liam Neeson on the other side, on the other end. I have a very particular sense.
I will find you.
I will find you, and I will kill you. It's probably not. It'd be brilliant. Can you imagine if Liam Neeson rolled up as the baddie in this, just like randomly? It's probably not though.
No.
I'm gonna just every time this guy gets referenced now, I'm just gonna think it's Liam Neeson. So she gets that text and doesn't tell anybody. And then the rest of the Flag Smashers are pulling up like Interpol things on the computer, and we find out what her name is. So she's obviously wanted, and her name is Carly Morgenthau. Now in the comics, that is a reference in the comics. So in the comics, that they've changed it slightly because it was a guy called Carl Morgenthau, and there wasn't a group in the comics called the Flag Smashers, but there was one villain called Flag Smasher, and he had the same his sort of like motive was the same as the Flag Smashers is. So to create one united world where there weren't loads of different countries, there was one government ruling the whole thing, and his way of doing it was via terrorism basically, and just trying to destroy as many institutions as he could. But that's where they've got Carly from. But obviously they've changed it from Carl to Carly. And she mentions as well. She says, after tomorrow, there's no going back. So obviously we haven't got to tomorrow yet, but that's obviously leading up to something massive happening. They're going to do something huge, terrorist related, in episode 3. So that's sort of setting that up. And then we cut back to Sam and Bucky, and I think they are on. They're on the jet again. And Bucky's still clearly very upset, and he basically says, let's just take the shield. Let's find John Walker, go back, get John Walker, and just take the shield off him, and just go and do it themselves. What? They don't need the shield. Like, it's just it's I suppose it's pretty decent.
Else,
it is, yeah. It's a decent weapon, isn't it? But I think it is just for them to sort of take over Steve's role rather than this guy doing it.
Yeah.
But Sam basically says we can't. He says last time we stole it, they didn't steal it. When did they steal the shield? He says, do you not remember what happened last time we stole it? Now, are they just saying it's like a metaphor? because he says that last time it happened, Sharon was branded an enemy of the state. So so that's obviously what happened to Sharon. And we basically me and Steve ended up on the run for 2 years. So that's clearly sort of saying what happened after Civil War.
Yeah,
but he left the shield with Tony.
Oh yeah.
He didn't take it. He left the shield with Tony. He said that because Tony said when he walked away, he said that's not your shield, that's not yours, it's my dad's. My dad gave it to you, and he dropped it on the floor and left it. And Tony had to give him back at the start of Endgame.
Didn't he fight with it though in the big fight in Civil War?
Yeah, but that was after. That was before him and Tony fought. So
Okay.
I don't know whether they're saying like take up the mantle or just rob the mantle, because he wasn't even Captain America either, was he? But whatever happened, they didn't. They didn't steal the shield, and I can only assume that it's like it's being used as a metaphor to a degree. Otherwise, we're getting X-Men continuity again. But he basically said, and Sam says, look, we can't, me and you together, even though there's two of us, and I think he says, even though you've got a vibranium and an arm, we can't go and take all these super soldiers together. You know, there's loads of them. There were at least 8 there. There's probably more. We're not going to be able to take it. And that's when Bucky says, there is something else we can do. There is someone you need to meet. And it's quite interesting where we go with that. Oh, because we go straight onto it now. I thought there was something else. No, we go straight onto it. So we go to Baltimore, and with Sam and Bucky. It sounds like we were with them. We go to Baltimore with Sam and Bucky. But there's a very, very specific tone to this, and I didn't think we were going to go down this tone and this route with it.
Very heavy. Compared to what
good.
We thought it'd do. No, it is good.
It's good. I just didn't think they'd go down this route, and I think it's very, very brave of Disney to go down this route.
That's what I meant by heavy. I meant like politically for Disney. It was quite a lot for what.
Yeah, but it's good
because to beat around the bush, but mention it enough that people acknowledge that it's mentioned.
Well, they don't. Yeah, they don't mention it specifically, do they? But it's so heavily implied, it's probably the best way of doing it for Disney, because at the end of the day, this is I know it's not a PG. It's 13 plus in America and 12 in the UK, but it's still aimed to a degree at kids, isn't it, or young teenagers? But I suppose it's good because they need to know these things. So I mean, I think the thing that sets the tone straight away is the fact that this kid sees Sam walking down the street and he's like, "Oh, it's the Black Falcon," and he's like, "My name's not Black Falcon. I'm not Black Falcon. I'm just the Falcon." And he's obviously trying to say, like, you don't have to distinguish me because I'm black. And that obviously sets the tone for the rest of it. So they go to this house and they ask for this guy called Isaiah. And obviously the kid who opens the door, at first won't let them in. They get in eventually, and we meet Isaiah. And it basically turns out he's an old fella. He's a black man, and it turns out that he fought Bucky in the 50s. Because he's they have the conversation, doesn't like Bucky still, and he obviously did well against him, because he said he took half his arm, and he whooped his ass. So he's basically, and so it's heavily implied that he's obviously a super soldier. And further on in the scene, he gets really wound up and he throws his tobacco tin, and it just literally goes into the wall. It just bursts through the wood and goes into the wall. So he clearly is a super soldier. And again, he's from the comics. So in the comics, Isaiah Bradley was a super soldier in the 50s at the same time as Cap, and at one point he was Captain America. So he was the black Captain America for a short time. Clearly different in this history. So in this history, he was basically used and abused by the government. So they used him as a Captain America, but he wasn't this big, in front of the cameras sort of thing. And it's clearly because he was a black man, and they didn't want to be portraying a black man as being super strong. And after they used him for what they needed, they basically locked him up for 30 years, did tests on him and all that sort of stuff. Possibly something to do with the fact that we've now got this additional serum, but very, very, very heavy, and but needed. Very good that they've included it. Somebody, he says as well, when he throws the tobacco tin in the wall, he says to Bucky, it wasn't just it was your people testing on me as well, who wouldn't leave me alone. And we find out what your people means later on. Also in there though, we see his grandson, the guy, the young lad who opens the door. he's also from the comics. So he's a guy called Eli Bradley, and he's one of the Young Avengers. So there's obviously like a team of like teenage Avengers in the comics, and he's basically the Young Avengers version of Captain America called Patriot. So there's quite a lot of names getting dropped in this, like big characters from the comics within one episode. So it's quite, I think potentially to a degree, like setting up Phase 4 or potentially even Phase 5 in the future by dropping these big characters into it throughout. So anyway, he's not interested in helping him, so they leave, and Sam's fuming. Sam's like livid the fact that there's been basically a black Captain America in the 50s and no one knew about it, no one's told him about it. And I think Sam in particular is upset because potentially to a degree it's why he didn't step up as Captain America, because he didn't want to be maybe the first black Captain America. And I think Bucky says like Steve didn't know because didn't want Isaiah being sort of like harassed or anything like that. He just wanted him to be left alone. And then again we get it's uncomfortable to watch, but it needs to be seen. These two cops roll up and they're just purely having a go at Sam. Literally a word hasn't been said, but they just go straight for Sam, and they even say to Bucky, "Is this guy bothering you?" And it's clearly just because he's a black man walking down the street. And it's disgusting, but it happens. It's probably like a cheesy way of saying it, "Is this guy bothering you?" But it's it's Disney-fied to a degree. And the fact that as soon as they realise he's Falcon, it's like, oh, sorry, that's absolutely fine. It's just like, but it's and we're not a political podcast, obviously, but it is going on. It does happen, and it's it's good that it's being touched on in this. So I think I think we need to applaud Disney for bringing
taking
it
a
up and
stance
making
to
it,
a degree.
yeah, and making it part of the storyline.
Yeah.
So in the end, anyway, they arrest Bucky rather than arresting Sam, and it's because he's basically missed his therapy. So he's obviously been pardoned, as Sam said, he got pardoned by the president, but because he's missing his court ordered therapy, they have to take him in. And then we go to him in jail. We see Dr. Rayner again, who's his therapist from the first episode, and then we find out that Bucky has been released. But he's been released by John Walker rather than the Doctor, because John obviously is desperate for Bucky and Sam to help. And what I noticed about this straight away, because we'll go through it in a bit more detail in a minute, but John's whole sort of character now seems to have changed. He's a bit like cocky and a bit arsey, and he's not being portrayed now, literally just straight away from this and the rest of the time you see him in the episode, he's not being portrayed as just like a really nice guy who's just doing the job. It's like in that short space of time, it's kind of gone to his head a little bit, and he feels like he should be in charge, and Bucky and Sam should be doing as they're told now, because he's the new Captain America. And they've done it. And one thing they've done is like classic, like South Park and everything. They've given him a little bit of a beard and a goatee. And it's like he's evil now. He's got a goatee. He's bad. So we've given him a beard because he looks edgy now rather than clean cut, like proper clean cut. And he does that, and it's like it's blatant. It's just so subtle, but it's a way of doing it.
To an extent, in Civil War, that's what they did with Cap, wasn't it? Didn't he grow a beard while he was kind of on the run and stuff like that?
He grew it after Civil War. So
was it afterwards?
He had it when he came back in Infinity War. But to make him look more edgy, it makes him look more edgy. But it's just like such a subtle little thing. He's not got a full beard, but he's just got like a little bit of darker stubble now, and it's just like that's proper what they're doing with him, just to make him look a little bit more like a bad guy. I've got a beard. I must be a bad guy. So one of them, isn't it?
Same.
But I won't say beard. It's like a bit of fluff on my chin, but we try. So basically Dr. Rayner says that you're having a court ordered therapy session now, and she drags Sam in as well, and she's basically trying to. Again, it's just like 5 minutes of banter between the two of them.
I was going to say this was like my favourite scene in this episode.
It was
I
so
laughed
good,
so much.
So she gets them to do this soul gazing exercise, and basically just stare at each other, just to to look into each other's soul basically, and they just have to get closer and closer and closer to the point where their legs are like interlocked. And we've seen it in the trailers, I think, or in promotional material, but it's just so funny. And then they just automatically start competing with each other and having a staring contest. It's brilliant, so good. Which is why I don't want them to become best friends. I like the fact that they don't like each other, but there's that respect. and then it sort of it gets, we break down sort of what Bucky's not what Bucky's problem is with Sam, but what Bucky's problem is with Sam at the moment, maybe. So he basically says, like, you shouldn't have given up the shield, and he sort of sums it up. He says Steve believed in you, and he believed you were the one who should have the shield, and maybe if you've given it up, Steve was wrong, and that might mean that he was wrong about me. Because obviously Steve is like to Bucky, you are a good guy, you're not a villain, you're not evil or anything like that. And I think he's starting to anything that sort of rocks. He's obviously relied so much on Steve telling him you're not a villain, you are a good, you're a good man. Has anything to sort of rock that is sort of shaking him up and making him doubt himself and his recovery to a degree. And basically Sam says again, he says, I just did what I thought was the right thing to do, and I've got my own reasons for it. And I think he says, like you and Steve will probably never understand why. And I think again, that's sort of hinting at the fact that he doesn't want to be, not whether he deserves to be Captain America because he's black, but like, does he want to put himself in that position? Because there would be hate, and I fully appreciate why he maybe wouldn't want to put himself in that position. But Sam shuts it down. He basically says, "Look, it's over. We're done. We're done. Let's sort of squash this for now. Let's go, and me and you will team up one last time. We'll go and stop these flag smashers, and then we'll go our separate ways. We won't get involved with each other, never see each other again, and that's it." So they go outside. They leave. And then there's John Walker with his evil goatee. Have you ever seen that episode of South Park where there's evil versions of the kids come, and they've all got goatees. It just instantly reminded me of that. So he stood there with his little beard, and he basically says that they know the Flag Smashers' last location, and they don't know where they are right now, but they've been tracking them, and he wants them to team up. And Sam quite rightly basically says, "Look, you two work for the government. You've got to follow specific rules. You've got to get approval before you do X, Y, Z. We don't. We're free agents. We can just go in. So it doesn't make sense for us to team up. We'll go and do our thing. You go and do your thing." And it's not sort of like he's not trying to be aggressive and saying sort of like, screw you. I'm not playing ball. It's like, I read it as, we'll probably do better separately because we're not restricted like you. But John Walker, and again, he sort of shows his true colours here. He says, well, if you're not going to do what I say, stay the hell out of my way. And again, that's showing that maybe it's going a bit to his head, or maybe he's just trying to prove himself to a degree and he doesn't want anybody cocking it up. But
he's an arsehole.
Sort of, he's an arsehole. We just don't like him, twat. So then we cut to Slovakia, which is where Carly and the Flag Smashers are, and someone comes running up to Carly and basically says they found us. The founders, they're coming. They're going to be here like now. And I think at first it's like, is it Sam? Is it John? And he says it's the Power Brokers men. And the Power Broker is another character from the comics, and he's sort of at this point, I would imagine, being portrayed, set up as another villain. Obviously, we've got Zemo, and we know Zemo's in it, but being set up as another villain of the show. Whether it is Zemo, but I don't know what he'd be doing from prison, like how much power he'd maybe have from prison. But I would imagine it's probably going to be a different character in this, because I think it is in the comics. And basically what happens is that one of the Flag Smashers stays behind, holds off the Power Brokers men, gets killed doing so that Carly and the rest of the Flag Smashers can get away. And again, it shows to a degree Carly's human side, because I think she's crying, isn't she? When they fly away. So again, So again, she's not just evil for the sake of being evil. She's doing what she thinks is right, even though it's not the right way of doing it. And then just before the end of the episode, we go back to Sam and Bucky, and Bucky mentions the fact that Isaiah had said, "My people or your people," and I think Sam thinks he means white people, and he's like, he didn't mean it that way. And he says, no, he means Hydra, because Hydra were obviously doing things. So they basically need to find out what Hydra know about like the super serum, and they need to go and speak to the one person who knows everything about Hydra, which just happens to be Zemo. So they're going to have to go. And Sam says, what are you going to do? You're going to go and sit in a room with this guy? And he's like, yeah, I'm going to have to. Which is very brave, considering the sort of like how on edge he just seemed to be about, is he good or is he bad? Knowing that this guy could literally just rattle off a few words and have Bucky just pure evil again straight away. I mean, unless something's been done to stop the mind wipe, but if Zemo's remembered the list of words, I think there's 10 words, isn't there? And if he's remembered them, like homecoming and stuff, could he just send? Is that where we're gonna go, or are we just gonna sort of forget? Forget that happened, or just assume that something's been done to sort of stop the programming? But and then we get a shot of Zemo, don't we, in prison?
Yeah.
And that is the end of the episode. In my opinion, I mean, the first episode was really good of the series, but this just like completely stepped it up. Really good episode, so much more fast paced, and I liked the fact that we've just dropped. I mean, like, how many notes I've got written down here about like different characters like Carly and the Power Broker and Black Star and Isaiah and Eli and all that sort of stuff. Just so many new characters, classic characters from the comics, but so many characters dropped into it, which we didn't really get. I know obviously we got characters in like WandaVision, but the only like big character we got from WandaVision was from the comics was Agatha, really, wasn't it? Everyone else was just sort of like in the background, I think we all thought they were going to be more important, and it'd be like, oh, is Dottie this person from the comics?
We also thought there were going to be more, like, because there were so many theories with that one that other comic people were going to come into it, and they never did. Whereas with this one, we've been introduced to a hell of a lot more before we've even had time to consider what could go down.
Exactly, yeah. So it's good, and I like the fact that it's much more fast. I said much more fast paced, and the fact that there's more action. It seems to it's like non-stop, the episode particularly compared to the first one. But I like it, and I think they are setting up. And there's a few bits in like ridiculous theories that we'll go through, but I think they are sort of using this to lay the groundwork to a degree for the future of the MCU. I mean, we're gonna clearly at the end we're gonna have a new Cap, aren't we? So we're gonna have the new leader of the Avengers sort of set up, I would imagine, at the end of the series. But yeah, good. What do you think? Good episode.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I am again action, like the fact that there was just so much action in it. I'm still wondering when we're gonna get Sharon, when she's gonna come into it.
Yeah, I was surprised we didn't get her in this episode, but obviously we got a mention of her, so I would guess we'd probably get her in next week's episode.
Yeah,
you'd think. Because I was thinking as well when we were watching it, it's like apart from the few shots of Sharon, I can't even say this. Apart from the few shots of Sharon, there wasn't the footage that we've seen in the trailers. We've pretty much seen most of it now. I think there's there's a clip of Zemo getting in a van, and obviously the bit of Bucky practicing with the shield in his garden, but even some of those shots of Sam practicing with the shield, I think were used in the little montage they did of John practicing with the shield. Yeah, when it was just the shield bouncing around. Yeah, some of them seem to be them from the trailers. So I don't know. Maybe the trailers were a complete fake out, because as I said, they Marvel done stuff before, done it before like that with like Hulk in the Infinity War trailer. So it could very well be, but yeah, I'm really. I mean, I was already excited for episode 2, but it was a slow start. Episode 1, I'm really hyped up for episode 3. I'm really looking forward to that. But yeah, Sam, should we do ridiculous theories?
Go on.
We'll do ridiculous theories. So this week we've started to get, which is really good. We've started to get some listeners sending in ridiculous theories, which is brilliant. Where obviously we're made up people are getting involved with the podcast. So first ridiculous theory that I've got down is from they're all from Twitter. So there's a Geeky Nate from Twitter mentioned Nate in previous episodes. He is like he basically gives me all the information that I don't know comic book related on Twitter, and he basically fills me in on the bits that I've missed. So thank you very much for that, Nate. Now he gave me this theory before, like a week and a bit ago. I think just about a week ago. He gave me this theory just after episode 1 came out. This whole theory, and you wouldn't think so having just watched the last episode. So his theory, or the full theory, but the first bit of his pose was that Falcon and the Winter Soldier will introduce Eli Bradley as Patriot. That was his theory last week, and he said he'd probably show up in the next episode. So I'm starting to think that Nate may be working for Marvel because he was absolutely spot on there. And he basically he said he's young Cap in the event. He's basically the young version of Cap in the Young Avengers. He also thinks that we'll then get a kid Loki, so a young version of Loki, which is heavily rumored to show up in the Loki series. There's been rumors online that there's some kid who's been cast in it. It's all being sort of kept quite hush-hush as to who he's playing, and there's rumors and things going around, and like some conversation that this kid had on Instagram that he might be portraying a kid version of Loki, because I think we're getting a female version of Loki as well through like all the different multiverse, so we could end up getting the kid Loki, and then we're already getting a Miss Marvel, clearly, because we know that's coming out. And then he also reckons that we'll, in Secret Invasion, get a character called Hulkling, who is another one of the Young Avengers. He's basically half Kree, half Skrull. He's like, obviously can shapeshift and stuff like that, but he's got superhuman strength and stuff. And that would basically form the team of the first Young Avengers. So he thinks all these things that are going on, we're getting drip fed a Young Avengers team to sort of go forward in phase 4 or phase 5, and as good as I thought that was, as now I doubted it to a degree, and now that we've got Eli Bradley in the first, literally a week later, I'm like, right, okay, he knows what he's talking about. So that was his first one. He also gave me a theory about DC. He said that he reckons that DC, because I think we mentioned this Super Pets movie last week, he thinks that DC's exciting plan is to push everything into the Super Pets movie and hope that it saves the DCEU because dogs and cats sell. He reckons they're putting all their eggs in that basket, that it's all just Super Pets. People love dogs, people love cats. Let's go with that.
Winner.
That's easy, isn't it? That's straightforward. Yeah. We had another theory on Twitter from Corellia Christina, and she reckons it's a DC theory. Thinks that the next Shazam movie will reference the Snyder Cut to a degree, whether it's like, full on or sort of like little sort of thing in the background. He said they said like in the first Shazam movie, they had a bit of a jab at Aquaman. Like I think Shazam holds up a fish and says like, why would anybody want the power to talk to fish? What a useless power and stuff like that. So it has a jab at that. So they reckon that it's going to reference how the fact that there have been different versions of the Justice League and leave it quite vague, so that we're not sure which version is the canon version or which version is Shazam following. Kind of like maybe like in Deadpool, whether it's like breaking the fourth wall or not, but like in Deadpool it's like, which timeline am I in, sort of thing. So I could see that, because it's very like it's very comedy focused, isn't it, Shazam? I like that one. I thought that was good. And then finally on Twitter we had Sarah on Twitter, and her theory is kind of like sort of like poo-pooing on other people's theories, but it's a theory. So she reckons that the even though people are theorizing that's going to happen, we're not going to get X-Men at all in Falcon the Winter Soldier. She thinks it's far too soon. Obviously there's the reference to Mandrapore, but it's just going to be used as a reference. Again, like as a bit of like,
which is what I said to you, wasn't it? Like,
yeah, like, well,
it's established, isn't it?
Exactly, like in like Wakanda. Wakanda was mentioned in Iron Man 2. It was mentioned in Avengers. It wasn't mentioned in Iron Man 2. I think it was on when Tony's getting interviewed or debriefed by Nick Fury at the end. Wakanda's in one of the pictures in the background. Okay. She says she does think they probably already exist and are in hiding, the mutants. So some huge thing isn't going to create them. But she doesn't think we'll see any of them in Falcon and Soldier, and I would probably agree. I think it'd be nice if we did, but at the same time we've already had so many people introduced, haven't we? So and then finally so for my theory then, have you got a theory?
I have got a theory.
Go on, right, I'll do my theory first then, because we normally do yours first. Let's do mine first. So I reckon that my theory is it's probably obvious this, but it's all I could think of this week. We've met, or we haven't met, but we've heard about the Power Broker, who is obviously the person who's chasing Carly in the Flag Smashers. I reckon what's going to happen is, because apparently this happens in the comics, John Walker and Battlestar, let's call him, are going to find out who this guy is, and they're going to go after him because they keep getting their arse handed to them by the Flag Smashers, and they're going to get him to give them super serum to become powerful, and they're going to go mental. Or not mental, but they're going to start going dark off it. Because they're not. Well, I mean, they seem like genuine guys, like, but it's not gonna go right, and they're gonna end up they're going to end up bad and probably get locked up, and we've got them as future supervillains to a degree, maybe.
Yeah.
But that's my theory. That's where I think, and I think whatever the power broker's got will probably get refined at the end for Sam, and Sam will get super serum and become the new Cap, because it clearly isn't going to work for him not to have super serum, because when you're going up against people like Flag Smashers, you're not going to be able to do it. And I think obviously we could get Bucky as the new Cap, but I just don't think that's going to happen. Now that they're not now the fact that they're addressing like the whole racism thing. And Black Lives Matter, not that they've addressed Black Lives Matter, but they've addressed the thing there, and I think it's right. It's a shame that Bucky's never going to get to hold the mantle, but I think it's where they need to go with it. So I think they'll need to give him super serum to go down the road. So that's my theory. It is a theory, but I think it's quite obvious to a degree. But that's what I reckon it's going to be.
So mine's a smaller theory. Mine's not a big story arc type situ. Yeah. So Red Wing just got destroyed, didn't it?
He did.
And in the series, like one of Falcon's abilities is that he can talk to birds. Yeah. I think that they are going to redesign Red Wing to actually be a bird, a mechanical bird. Yeah.
Somebody at Marvel's seeing the fact that the DC universe are going down the super pets route and thinks we need some super pets up in here.
Let's just throw a bird in. Yeah. But I think that just to kind of give it a little bit more relation to the comics, I think having Red Wing as an actual bird,
and Sam can talk to him.
Cool. Well, it might. I don't know. It might be like a Jarvis situ, mightn't it? I don't know.
That is the most random theory ever.
It is a random theory, but
well done. I don't think, Anthony, that any of these other theories were ridiculous this week. Well done. Well done for bringing in a ridiculous one.
Cheers, man.
No, it could. I suppose. No, you know what? It could, though, couldn't it? I don't think he'll be able to talk to the bird, but yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if at the end, I think at the very end of the series, as maybe like a gift from Bucky or something like that, like a proper an actual bird, an actual falcon called Red Wing. I could see that. Yeah. I could see that happening. I don't think he'll be able to talk to him, but yeah, I think that'd be quite interesting actually.
Yeah.
I like that. It's not that ridiculous, actually. Well done. You've sold me. You didn't even say anything. You've sold me.
I just had to let it sit there in your mind for 5 minutes. Yeah.
I just had to let it settle in my head. But yeah, no, I like that. It's good. All right, Sam. Right. So I think we're all done, aren't we? So obviously a couple of quick shout outs. As said to Nate, Geeky Nate on Twitter. Obviously, thanks for helping us with the as you always do with the little bits of information that we don't have a clue on the comics. We will also be later today, in fact, going on Nate's YouTube channel as well. So if you follow us on Twitter, all the details will be on there. I'll post it on Facebook as well. Also, quick shout out to Casey from the Movie Multiverse. I said last week that nobody sent us a voice message yet on Anchor, and he emailed me and he was like, "Is there something broken? Because I sent you a voice message." You did, Casey, you did, but I didn't know whether you wanted it because it was sort of like a good luck. Really appreciated, so good luck with the podcast and everything like that, and I didn't think you'd want me us to put it on there, but thank you, Casey, for sort of obviously giving us a shout out on the last podcast that you did.
Cheers, man.
It does work, so thank you very much. And then ways to get in touch. So as said, as usual, you can get in touch with us on Twitter at Superhero Thing. You can find us on Facebook at That Superhero Thing on Facebook, and there's a podcast group on there, so again, you can get on there, you can talk to us all on there. And then finally, if you go to the Anchor website, or our part of the Anchor website who hosts the podcast, so it's anchor.fm/That Superhero Thing. As I've just mentioned, there is a function on there where you can leave us a voice message. So if you leave us any questions, theories, or if you want to put forward a ridiculous theory of the week or anything like that on there, if you put your voice message on it, we can include it in the podcast. Please, somebody do it. I'm dying to include somebody's voice message. I figured out how to do it on the computer and everything. So please, somebody, leave us a message. Not you, Anthony. Don't you do it. It'll be weird if you do it.
Hello.
But yeah, hello. Oh,
be like John Hammond talking to himself in Jurassic Park, wouldn't it?
Exactly. Yeah. Do it. We'll do it next week. But yeah. So other than that, that's all from me. So again, thanks very much, guys. We'll see you next week.
Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.